first.
I'm joined now from Copenhagen by Ambassador Lumumba Diaping, who chairs the G77 delegation which made its protest today, and here by the Environment Secretary Hilary Benn, who's just returned from the Danish capital. Ambassador Diaping, if this is so important, why has your group been posturing today, walking out for a few hours?
We are not posturing, with all due respect. What we are persuading and acting to focus the negotiations on issues that are central to success. As Prime Minister Gordon Brown said, there must be an equitable and a just deal. An equitable and a just deal has three foundations. First, keeping Kyoto Protocol alive. Second, saving lives. Africa will be destroyed if there are no radical reductions of emissions by developed countries. Third, there must be finance sufficient enough to enter and transform and address the issues that climate change has brought upon us.
OK, we'll pick those up in a second. But Hilary Benn, we're hearing from our Newsnight team in Copenhagen that the EU is shifting its position on the first of these things to keep the Kyoto Protocol alive beyond 2012 as a legally binding agreement. Is that your understanding?
Well, look, we've got the Kyoto Protocol. It's achieved some progress. The problem with Kyoto on its own, however, is it covers about a third of global emissions. It doesn't include the United States of America. It doesn't include China. It doesn't include...
But do you see why this is symbolically important for many people? Keep it live, legally binding, bring others in.
I understand that, and there are these two negotiations going on. In the end, we need to bring all of this together into a single agreement. That's what we require, because every country in the world, according to its ability to contribute, has got to play its part. And it's not about putting Kyoto on one side or abandoning it. It's about building on what it has achieved, but you've got to add to it if we're going to deal with the problems that the Ambassador has rightly been talking about.
Ambassador, well, you heard that point. Kyoto is not enough. It may be symbolic, but it doesn't include the United States anyway.
Kyoto is not enough on two counts. First, Kyoto first period only agreed on minus 5.2 reductions. Science tells us today we need a minimum of 60 by 2020. So that's the first issue that we need to address. The second issue that we need to address in addressing the gaps that Honorable Benn spoke about is the comparability of efforts by United States, which is the greatest emitter on historical terms and per capita. That is not addressed by walking out of Kyoto Protocol. Europe did not walk out of the agreements because there were difficulties. It worked very hard to convince those who were skeptics to join the Maastricht Treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, etc. You do not throw away fundamental agreements that will help us move forward.
Hilary Benn, I've just returned from the United States, and I can tell you quite a group of senators and members of the Congress say what's important now are jobs. This is a scheme to transfer a lot of American money to countries which can, frankly, fend for themselves when what we need is job creation at home.
Well, this is an agreement that we're trying to get in Copenhagen to prevent very damaging climate change affecting every country in the world, from the richest to the poorest. I mean, it's very, very clear that we have an interest in coming together, resolving these very difficult problems. This is about as tough a negotiation as you could ask for, but everybody I spoke to in Copenhagen over the last couple of days recognises the importance of the task. I'm sorry that we've lost some time today to an argument about process. Now, we're back on course talking tonight because Connie Hedegaard had proposed yesterday that groups be set up looking at the most difficult issues with one representative from the developed countries, one from the developing. Ed Miliband is meeting with the Finance Minister of Ghana tonight to talk about finance. Gordon Brown arrives tomorrow. We've got to get back to the substance. We've got to find a way forward.
Todd Stern, the US negotiator, says, I do not envision public funds, certainly not from the US, going to China. Do you imagine that British funds will go to China as part of this deal?
Well, we've made commitments, and we've got the Fast Start finance that's been agreed now for the first 3 years, because we've got to give to the Ambassador and to the G77...
But his group, G77 includes China. I mean, do you think that British taxpayers want their money to go to China?
Well, the money's going to have to go to the countries that need it most, and China has got a lot of resources itself, and it has put an offer in terms of reducing its carbon intensity on the table.
China.
The fact is, in the end, it'll have to work out exactly how the money is going to be allocated.
So
but
it could go to China. That's my
Gavin,
point.
the greatest need is going to be for the very poorest countries of the world that need help to pay for low-carbon development. That's very clear.
Ambassador, can you understand why the United States, seeing China as a potential competitor, a very fast-growing economy, and given that rivalry, does not want their money to go to China, and they are part of your group, and it's very difficult to see any agreement which would not mean a transfer of American dollars to the Chinese?
This is, again, the facts that need to be corrected. China is not in need of money. China is in need of technology to reduce its emissions. Advanced technology that the West has, and which is the crucial issue. The second thing, which is important, and I do acknowledge that there is a need for American society to create jobs, etc. However, the way you create jobs is to launch a green industrial revolution in which American industries move towards real creation of jobs rather than spending 22 trillion on the financial industry that has corrupted the world. The balance of priority must be right. The third issue that America and President Obama has to ask, would you accept that Africa will be destroyed because you simply do not want to act on the science, and do not want to consider that Africa is part of the human family and you are a member of that society?
What would be a good outcome this week, do you think?
Well, an agreement that is going to be sufficient to deal with the fear that we all have, that the world will be affected by dangerous climate change. And the ambassador is right. In Africa, countries are already experiencing the impact of that. We've got to get enough commitments, undertakings, actions, whatever title you give them, on the table. And yes, in return, there's going to have to be finance to pay for the transition.
And that's possible.
But the ambassador is also right that there's an opportunity here, because there are jobs. There is the opportunity for scientific progress, for new technologies. This is a change the science tells us the world has got to make, but there's also the chance of new employment and a new economy for the new century if we do it.
The practical difficulties. Do you really think that's possible in the next couple of days?
I am an optimist because in the end, every country from the richest to the poorest sees the science. We know that 90% of emissions in the future are going to come from the developing economies of the world, and that's why everybody has to contribute. But we've got to work very hard over the time that we've got less to bring this deal home.
Ambassador, Mr. Benn, thank you very much.